watching The John Funk Show, and today is on costumes. Before we begin, please click the like button and subscribe. And we're here with my good friend, fashion designer and creative Adolfo Sanchez from Project Runway and many, many other, fashion shows like LA Fashion Week. Hi, Adolfo.
What's up? How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So, before we begin, do you want to tell everybody a little bit more about yourself and your bio?
Sure, I'm Adolfo Sanchez, creative all around and a fashion designer based in Los Angeles, from originally from Los Angeles, born in Hollywood, grew up out here in the burbs of Cali in Orange County, and been in fashion since I was 19 years old, worked for corporate fashion companies like the Italian brands like Versace, Cavalli, and a bunch of other ones, and then left corporate fashion world to pursue my own brand in 2010. 2010, I left to pursue it. So it's been 15 years that I have been in the industry of like all different types of sides of the fashion business, from PR to product development, and been doing my own brand, Adolfo Sanchez, my self-named label, since 2019.
You know how I describe your aesthetic is Gianni in Los Angeles.
Johnny in Los Angeles. And that ended up at some goth club. Yeah.
Yes, yes, with you're not a big color guy. Very
Yeah.
monochrome, although you have used color. But you've got a great sense of style. What's your website? People can check out if they want to hire
You can
you.
check me out at shop.adolfosanchezdesigns.com.
Cool. Today we're going to talk a little bit about costumes in film. They're a part of mise en scène or what you put into the scene. Costume is character. Martin Scorsese says that. So true. It's almost like a ritual to help the actor become a different character. It's all about detail. I think about things like material, color, quality, relationship with the other costumes, narrative motivation. So in 8 and a Half, the main character wears sunglasses because he wants to kind of blend in. So there's narrative reason for every little detail in the costumes. Backstory. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp's character has all these little trinkets, like a chicken foot and all sorts of weird stuff. Well, they're at some point, they're woven into the actual story and the narrative. Um, in Pirates they lost some of his pirate hats, and so they in some shots, it's rubber so that the hat would float on the water, so they wouldn't keep losing. Having multiple versions of something, especially if it's going to get stained, is important. Putting that into the budget, so okay, we're going to need multiple versions of this for continuity. Is something to consider. The theme, making sure that you have your fittings. Continuity research, the feel for both the actor and the audience is something to consider, because you want your actors to be comfortable. The costume designer always needs to get sizes and specs from that needs to be coordinated for everybody. They always also ask on productions, do we have logos? Because are we going to be able to clear this? Can I show the little polo, thing or not? Tags. Do we keep the tags? Are we returning these? What's up? That's a budget
Hopefully
thing.
not.
I know, but on low budget projects, sometimes
Yeah, I know.
it's a little creativity. And then distressing things, wear and tear, fading, stains, burns, all these little things are, the bring about, really strong costumes. What are some of your favorite costumes in movie history? I don't think the Oscars started giving costume best Oscar until like the 1940s.
Hmm.
Great costumes, were even at the beginning, but regardless, what are a couple of your favorite movie costumes? I mean, there's so many.
I think for sure, like I could watch over and over and never get bored of all the costuming in the film overall of Batman Returns, Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer, like as many attempts to redo Catwoman, there will never be one that was better than her. She was like perfect in it. In fact, on Instagram, I saw recently like one of the takes of where she did like the whip and she was whipping the heads off of the mannequins, and they like showed the behind the scenes of her doing that clip and how she did it so perfect. It was just so perfectly done the way things were before the green screens and then whatever. I mean, they were still using some of that in that film, but I love the costuming of that. And believe it or not, I think as just a movie and as just like a great script and a great actress and the costuming, I think even won an award was Elizabeth, the Golden Age. That film, towards the end, they do a 360 on her in one of the really royal looks. It was just one of those moments for me that like gave me kind of like an aha moment, like, wow, it's costuming to me is such an important factor. And I'm so confused sometimes when I watch a film and I see like a director or I see people spend so much time on who's the actor, on who's the script, on where it's going to be. And then I look at what they're wearing and I'm like, who was the costumer behind this? Or they take the budget and maybe less of the budget goes to the actual wardrobe when I don't think they realize that it's a visual piece, right? And so visually you're telling a story. If it's present time, then I get it. But if it's like a historical piece or some sort of period piece or some sort of, fantasy film piece, the wardrobe is so important. I think that is something that a lot of people forget. And you see the ones where they focus on that and what
Yep.
it really does for the film.
Well, the actor will know, like the little details will help the actor, bring about that performance. In Midsummer, Andrea Flesch, I think, was the costume designer, and she came up with a whole mythology and a backstory to the different runes and little details and the embroidery to kind of help make those costumes come to life. On Roses on the Vine, my last film, it's an indie. It's a t-shirt and jeans movie, but there were little details such as the word roses only appears in the script once, but there were little floral prints that were subtle to have that kind of roses motif. And the main character, Billy, his suit is deliberately not tailored because he's a lower class guy and he's kind of a shyster. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
a way to have the little deliberate mistailoring say something about the character. I really like Knives Out. Jenny Eagan, I think, was the costume designer. And one of the cool things about that is the bad guy wears a wool sweater because the bad guy is kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing. So even the material was kind of like hinting that something is, amiss. William Chang was the costume designer on 2046 and In the Mood for Love. I think those are some gorgeous costumes. You had mentioned Batman. Catwoman's costume is great because it clearly looks homemade and you see it, and the fact that it doesn't look like a perfect, overly polished costume is perfect for her character.
I thought it was so perfectly done. It was so unperfectly perfect.
Perfectly worded. So in Batman, 1989, Bob Ringwood, that was the first Batman costume that ushered in the modern superhero. We never had like a black rubber, leather, whatever. The Bryan Singer X-Men movies, all those kind of followed that. I always thought it was interesting that he wears Nike shoes in that film, which was a part of, I guess, product placement, but they subtly somehow made it work.
Beginning of it,
Yeah.
beginning of product placement.
Do you know who Edith Head is?
Yeah, of course.
She did the costumes for All About Eve. Do you also think she was the inspiration behind Edna Mode from The Incredibles?
They say that, right? Also, I don't know. I've heard that before. But also, there's a designer. I forget the name of the actual designer. That was it. Was this? Was it more than one? I thought I heard about there possibly being more than one person they thought it was based on.
Probably.
But yeah, I mean, who know? I mean, such a great character.
Royal Tenenbaums, Karen Patch created the costumes for that film. Several of the characters all wear the same like red tracksuit because it's saying something that the character is very rigid and wants the same thing over and over again. And the tennis player wears certain tennis elements, and the costumes really kind of say something about all the different characters.
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow's character wears a very specific kind of fur that says something about her character and what she wants. So that's another grounded film that I think really has some what I would call elevated or strong costume design.
What do you think about modern day costuming in the sense of like for example, Dune?
Oh, well, Dune, both the David Lynch version, which nobody likes except for me and David Lynch, and the current Denis Villeneuve Dune, I love, and I do think those costumes are some of the best. Not just the costumes, the cinematography,
All of it.
the act, yeah, all of it. And the
Just
music. How about the music?
everything.
Everything.
It's like every single component was so well thought out. Dune Tune was amazing also.
Sure.
So it's like I think that's like such a great example of like that they could have done all of those same things and not incorporated so much energy and time into costuming, and it still probably would have been great. But adding those elements of like those giant, the big head pieces that looked almost like veils that they were wearing and all the other details, it was just it made it that much more interesting.
Well, that's a good example of world building. I try to do world building and everything, even the grounded t-shirt and jean stuff. I always want to apply a world building element to it. But yeah, no, that's a classic example world building, where there's a mythology and a backstory to every little detail. Even the stuff that's absurd, you could argue that's this culture that they're conjuring up, as a reason why they're wearing, kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's some sort of a logic that they have to come up with, to make the world work.
Okay, so I got to ask you a question. Old Tim Burton or new Tim Burton?
Well, I think Edward Scissorhands is his best.
I mean, it's like when I've seen these like Alice in Wonderlands and like the new ones, I just expected so much more in a different way. When I think of like, Batman Returns, when I think of Edward Scissorhands, when I think of all these,
Ed Wood.
yeah, yeah, when I think of
Um,
like, everything that was before, I'm like, old Tim Burton, where my heart
I,
is.
I love Tim. I know you do too. Colleen can do no wrong in my book.
No. I
I
mean,
guess.
she gets flashed a little bit at the carpets, but that's because,
Oh, what about Maya's C. Rubio? I believe she did Apocalypto, and I love the costumes in Apocalypto.
I've seen that movie. You know which one also is a really great one now that you bring up, like, what was this Blade Runner, the
Oh
original?
yeah, oh yeah.
Blade Runner was so good, the costuming for it, the original one. The new
Uh,
one was disappointing, but
well, I will tell you, I like both the
both Blade Runners,
I'm guilty. But no, the original is.
reasons or what?
I think Roger Deakins shot it. Like he's one of those DPs where there's a handful of directors of photography, cinematographers whose work he's like a painter to me. So maybe I'm being seduced by the cinematography, and I'm
Cinematography, yeah. Costuming wise, I don't know if it was really quite as
fair. That's fair. I wanted to mention Wizard of Oz and the Dorothy dress with that gingham fabric, that pattern. That's one of those iconic dresses. Kind of an Americana farm girl, and the checkerboard print kind of alluded to she's going to go on the yellow brick road to kind of tie her into both the real world and the fantasy world. And then I guess, Star Wars: A New Hope, John Mollo did the Darth
yeah,
Vader.
right. Those were like iconic in their own right, and you still have fans, and that's I think really tells you how powerful something really is. Because when you look at like Wizard of Oz is now being shown in the Sphere in Vegas, and they're doing all these like live, like the snow actually is snow, the wind, and all these 3D of like real life things to make you feel like you're in the film. It shows you how great those films really are. I'm gonna get yelled at for this, but I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. But I know that there's people that will rave about it till the day I'm 90 and beyond that. And that it's all right. That whole series of films in their own right, their costuming was obviously like very cool.
The Darth Vader costume, especially, I think, is noteworthy. You brought up the sphere. That's a whole other conversation about, emerging technology and, ways to see film. But costumes are extremely important. They help, bring about, the actors and their performance. And if anybody, I do have a project that you and I are hopefully going to work on. But if anybody wants to reach out to you, can you remind us one more time before we go how people can reach out to Adolfo if they want to work with Project Runway designer, award-winning costumer?
Next in
Adolfo
fashion.
Sanchez?
Next in fashion.
Sorry, thank you.
Project Runway.
I miss
But
I misspoke. Thank
but I will say Netflix is I mean Next in Fashion is the Netflix version of Project Runway. So I can see how that would be confusing.
you. Freudian, whatever you want to call it, slip.
If you want to get a hold of me, you want to reach me, you can follow me on social at A Sanchez Fashion, or you can check out my website on shop.adolfosanchezdesigns.com.
Thank you, Adolfo, and thank you, everybody. Until my next video, thank you.